Hey there, welcome to the Act of Coaching. I'm your host, Phil Askew, and in each episode I sit down with certified coaches from ACT Leadership. Together we explore their unique journeys into the coaching world and how they use their skills to make a real difference, both in their work and in their everyday lives. Whether you're a coach or simply coach curious, you're going to love this podcast. Enjoy the show. All right, so welcome to the show. Really lovely to have you here, Kat. We know each other through you doing my course, Land the Clients You Love, and it was a real pleasure to have you in that course. And so
I love
thank
that
you for
course.
being, yeah, thank you. Thank you for being my guest on today's show. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Phil. The pleasure is all mine, as they say in English.
They do indeed, yes. Well, wait till the end. You might not agree. No, hopefully you will. It'll be easy and fun. So I always kick off with the question around who do you feel called to being in service of? Who are you working with at the moment and what is it that you help them with?
From working with me, I made a career transition after my twin boys went off to college, and I became an empty nester overnight. And I had been a full-time analyst on Wall Street for 30 plus years, very high stress, very demanding environment. And towards the middle of my career, I started taking a very strong interest in mentoring young professionals within the fields, so within finance. And I did that as just a natural progression from my own career. And I really enjoyed it. And then right before COVID, I saw the writing on the wall. I saw that sort of my parenting role was being reduced as my kids became high schoolers, and I wanted to start formalizing this idea of mentoring into more of a coaching environment. And I looked into it. I did a deep dive and realized that I do have a lot of voids in my understanding of what coaching is, and I wanted to fill those. And I know, like many of the other students in my cohort, there's just like this maze of information when you look up coaching training programs. So I came to ACT very quickly because I felt like being under the umbrella of Brown University gave the program incredible credibility. So that's when I enrolled. And the people that I mentor, I niche down very quickly. I'm a productivity coach now for high performance professionals, and I help them break their cycles of self doubt and become more self confident. So that's in a nutshell where I started and where I am now.
Mm. I love how specific that is. Yeah, I love how specific that is. It's fantastic. Because oftentimes people, we as coaches get asked, "Oh, what do you do?" And you say, "Oh, I'm a
Mhm.
coach." And it's brilliant. What sort of coach? And so for you to be able to actually relay it and communicate it so effectively like that says a lot about the amount of work that you've done, the amount of kind of consideration that you've put into figuring out who you're called to being in service of. And I
I
think that
think
makes it easier, doesn't it?
it absolutely does. I think you start off very broad when you start in the coaching program in terms of I could be a leadership coach. And then along the way, in my case, what happened is that I really felt this need to niche down because I really wanted to coach around my own personal experience, which has been working in these high performance environments where you have a very distinct behavior pattern that I observed not only in my own trajectory, but also with many of those that I mentored, which is that you always assume that high performers and prolific and very successful people in business walk around with brimming with self confidence. And that is a complete fallacy. I'm in my mid 50s now, and I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And I still am an analyst in the AM. I coach in the PM sort of thing. I wear two hats. So I never really fully gave up my analyst profession. And I can tell you that sometimes, no, oftentimes, let me correct that, high performance professionals suffer greatly from these cycles of self doubt and they crash very hard. And so I've really been able to niche down and help people in all types of industries, not just finance. I also work with elite athletes where they'll have this string of wins and suddenly they will have one loss and it just spirals them into this cycle of self doubt. I work with lawyers who the entire self worth is based on winning cases,
Mm.
and like creators who in this digital economy base their entire success on how many reactions, engagements they get on each post. So this is a pattern that I saw across high performance professionals. And I really have enjoyed niching down and focusing
Mm.
on this population.
It's great because it sounds like you cover lots of different demographics, as in you couldn't point to an industry and say, yeah, these are the people that I work with. But it
Yeah.
sounds very much like you specialize and specify that you work with these people who are in high pressure situations and high pressure stakes. And when they come across something which kind of unsettles them, it sounds like you partner with them to really understand what's going on and to normalize it to some degree, and then maybe to help them discover who they truly are, really, maybe beyond the guise, beyond the label.
Yes, absolutely. I think we do a lot of reframing. And as you mentioned, acknowledging, and one of the
Mm.
great skills I learned in the ACT program is paraphrasing, which is basically acknowledging what they're experiencing. And that goes a long way with high performance professionals who really don't spend a lot of time in those periods of self reflection that would
Mm.
help them short circuit these cycles of self doubt when they show up. And I've written a curriculum around it, which I hope to launch in the fall as well, where I feel I could make an even bigger impact. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder if these people are are willing. If they're high performers, then I would imagine it's very difficult. I make up an assumption. It's very difficult for them to be vulnerable and to maybe feel safe enough to admit that there's something not quite right, something that needs addressing.
Yeah,
Like,
you're right on.
yeah,
Absolutely. Most of these high performers have never really experienced failure. They've really sailed
yeah.
through life, done well at school, top grades, top university performance. And then after graduating, they're thrown into the real world and they may even go into their first assignment at their job and have this excellent performance. And then suddenly one day they're hit with a huge setback. Just to give an example from my industry, we get a daily report card. We pick stocks. We know at the end of every day or even every minute of the day how well we're doing. And even at my age, I still have these cycles of self doubt where I've had like a string of wins and great performance. And then suddenly I pick a bad stock and I say to myself, I'm useless at this
Mhm.
after 30 years of having really solid performance. And now take that to young people, which is my focus really is working with young professionals. And they've never experienced that. They've always basically had these, like I said, perfect report cards. There is a lack of vulnerability at first, but I do find that especially in this generation, there is much more openness to reaching out and using the coaching modality as a way to effectively work through these setbacks. So
Mm.
there's been a lot more openness. I work with corporate clients who actually have made coaching a big part of their annual budget. So I think that
Mm.
there's a shift going on there for sure.
Yeah. It's a lot more socially acceptable now to say, I'm working with a coach, or, and it not mean, it doesn't have the stigma like maybe it used to have of saying, I'm working with a therapist at the moment, seeing a therapist, so like Woody Allen style. But I think there's so much more openness and awareness of the positive impact that
Mhm.
coaching plays in so many different roles and
Mhm.
responsibilities. I'm really curious about your early days, like your early years, as in, has Kat always been into other people? Have you always had this fascination with others?
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
Sorry if that was a
I
left
know.
field coming.
No, I mean, I've never been asked that question, so I welcome it. I actually have a close friend who lives in London who always, when he sees me, says, I gotta be careful what I'm saying at this point because all you do all the time is gather information. You're always gathering data, looking for patterns. Yeah, I think that I'm wired to be an analyst, and with that comes immense curiosity for people. And I think that's also what has led me to coaching is that I really feel I was given this gift to not only understand, but also empathize with people that really helps me navigate coaching a lot better.
Mm,
So definitely, I've always been incredibly curious.
mm,
I also took this gift or this personality trait to my work life and in my training programs with my analysts. I always refer to it as having this pedestrian mind. It's however successful you are, however much you kind of reach up the corporate ladder, always bear in mind to remain a pedestrian and pay attention to regular life and watching people, understanding people is something that I immensely enjoy. So
mm,
yes, that's really true.
mm. It sounds if you have an analytical mind and you are not necessarily sometimes in the web industry. So I used to be in the web industry years ago in the
Mhm.
2000s. We very much there was a distinct division. It felt like between the designers who were creative, who were really good at Photoshop, and really good at coming up
Mhm.
with conceptual stuff.
Mhm.
And then on the other side, you would have the techies or the coders who would be really good at building websites. And never the two shall cross. It was like, okay, so you either have a super analytical mind or you have a mind which is really creative and ideate all day long. And it
I
was
actually
almost,
envy I envy the creative minds, and I've always aspired to be like them, but you're absolutely right. I feel very uncomfortable in shades of gray. My
mm,
mind works in a very binary format. So I've basically tried to retrain it over time because
mm,
mastery of language is very important to me. And again, that requires a creative mindset, and I really had to train myself to be more creative. So I do envy those people.
but a lot of extreme creatives or a lot of extreme kind of creative minds find it very difficult to put things into a sequence so things don't necessarily get complete or out into the world. Lots of fantastic ideas that don't necessarily get actioned. So we
Mhm.
absolutely need the best of both worlds, or at least we need some of both worlds. We need the left brain and the right brain. But it's fantastic that you're in the role of a coaching position and you have this analytical mind. So it's great because you can hold the client to be naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and them do their thing. But it sounds like you're able to strategically help them connect all the dots as well, maybe.
Yeah, that's very true. And what I'd like to just add to that is analysts really at their core, what they do is look for patterns. And patterns really is what help them come to their conclusions and outcomes. And I feel looking for patterns in coaching has also helped me tremendously. So,
Mm.
yeah, definitely. I'm
It's
aligned with that, Phil.
yeah, it's essential, isn't it? Yeah. So when you were searching for training, coach training, because there's a plethora of all sorts of different courses, how did you go about doing your research and how did you end up making your decision to go with ACT?
Gosh, this was quite a while back, but I'm a very quick decision maker. So I'm a productivity coach. So I got to practice what I preach. And I remember just seeing the Brown program, and I was struck by first the testimonials and then having a discovery call and really realizing the depth and intensity of the program. Of course, I didn't realize how all consuming it was until I signed on to Zoom the first day of my first 3-day intensive. But
Yeah.
that's another story. Yeah, I really felt the program was broad, yet also very focused on performance and leadership coaching. And the other students in my cohort were all were often in similar situations like me, where they've had these big careers and wanted to take on a new role within their organizations or shift towards doing more coaching and that being a disproportionate part of their work day. And that really appealed to me talking to other students, which ACT makes available.
Mhm.
And I have to say, one thing that I really want to share with you is that I do think that I enrolled in ACT with the intention to coach others and left with this profound understanding of myself, because the intense focus on demos and practice coaching, it really fostered like significant self development and self growth. So
Mm.
I found like this isn't the kind of a course where, how do you say, you can use the dog ate my homework exercise, because every task holds you accountable and it contributes to your
Yeah.
transformation. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
at the end of the day, I got a lot more out of the ACT experience than just my coaching certification. And for that, I'm really grateful. And I think that doesn't come out as much in the discovery calls I did with
Mm.
the coaching staff, the ACT coaching staff.
Mhm. I think it's a rare commodity as well, is the fact that when we train coachees or students to
Mhm.
become coaches, we encourage you and ask you to bring your own life experiences, your own real life situations. There's no role play. And I think that's a real rare thing. It's sometimes it can be a little bit unsettling because you're thinking, oh, I thought I was going to be Gladys in marketing. I thought I was going to be doing this role play,
Yeah.
which I've been to courses like that. And they're just like, this is weird. How do I act this? Well, pretend you're really angry. Pretend, pretend you're dissatisfied. You want to have that difficult conversation and action almost. But it's not like that at all. And I think those courses are the most potent, most powerful courses because they train you real world with your own stuff. So growth is inevitable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's like, yes, it is. Unfortunately, sometimes. Fantastic. Were there any tools or any sort of techniques that you particularly appreciated and enjoyed from the course?
Yes, several. I think listening at level 3. Um, so listening at level 3, and correct me if I'm wrong because I'm never good at retaining information in terms of clear definitions, but
Mm,
it means basically being fully present, listening to your client, and also taking into account their body language. And it really means to me being fully present without having your own mind racing in terms of what's going to come next and how am I going to help this client. It's like staying curious and
yeah.
being fully attentive. Did I do a good job
Curious.
explaining that?
You certainly did. You certainly did. Yes. If you imagine, oh, look, a camera lens. Here we go. Of course, I've got a camera lens near me. It's level three is this wide angle view on what's going on there with
Mhm.
you, client, but then also what's going on around and what are my intuitions telling me and what's your body language saying as well. So I love what you're saying there. It really does.
Was terrible at it before because I
Yes.
work in this very sort of fast-paced environment, and I had no
Yeah.
patience for
Yeah.
anyone's dialogue.
Yeah.
It's like I realized
Come
through
on.
ACT what a poor job I'd been doing listening to others. So that was also really eye-opening. Yeah.
Yeah. They say that if you're queuing up the next question, then you're not listening. We can't listen as well as have a really good smart question lined up.
I
It's
like
like,
that. I like
yeah,
that.
it's
I'll have to
kind of,
write that down, Phil. So the other things were paraphrasing and
Mm,
metaphors because I'm really, as a parent, especially really into acknowledging. And the
amazing.
actual formal tool of paraphrasing was really helpful for me to learn and be trained in. And then, of course, metaphors are wonderful. And our cohort actually started a document where we all shared best metaphors. I've
Mm.
got to become a lot better at diversifying my metaphor use. I seem to always fall back on, "It feels like you have a backpack with bricks in it. How do you
Oh,
wanna remove one brick at a time?"
it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
But it is a good one. So we might use metaphors to help clients grasp and conceptualize something which is a bit maybe
Mhm,
abstract or difficult to wrap words around, don't we? So I love that
mhm.
one. I think I've actually used that one in the past a few times. Or like a boat out on the
My
sea at
go-to,
night
yeah.
heading in the direction where the wind is blowing us in the direction. But there's so many different metaphors that we could utilize. And sometimes I find it's lovely to actually ask a client, what's a metaphor for that? You tell me, you paint a picture and tell me what it's
Yes.
like to be you at the moment. Yeah.
I feel clients love coming up with their own metaphors. It makes them feel
Yeah.
like they've just had a small win during the coaching session. Absolutely
Yeah.
true.
And it
I
also
like
makes it
that
their own,
strategy.
doesn't it? It's okay. Oh, that's my metaphor. I'm owning that. Because
Mhm,
sometimes metaphors that we come up with for the clients don't necessarily fit. It's almost, oh,
mhm.
okay, it's like that, but not fully. Yeah. How do you find that your newfound superpowers of level three listening, how, and also you said paraphrasing also and metaphors too, like these incredible tools, how did you find that they impacted your personal relationships?
Oh, they've had a tremendous impact on my personal relationships, and especially with my son. So, being in this sort of time period where my kids are young adults and going off on their own, it has its own challenges when it comes to parenting. And I remember each time I would get a call from them, I would be like, "Oh, I got their attention. I'm gonna go through this sort of laundry list of items that I need them to complete." And they would completely shut down. And through coaching, I learned that is a very poor approach to parenting young adults or maybe parenting kids in general. So I have basically removed that from my communication with my kids, and I'm all about listening at level 3 now, which has
Mm,
been shown a big shift in my relationship with them. And the other thing on a more sort of humorous side is that I do get my inner circle sometimes raising this red flag and saying to me, "Kat, you're coaching
are
now.
you coaching me? Yeah.
You're yeah, are you coaching me? Are you coaching me?"
Yeah. So enjoy it.
It's for free and enjoy it. But yeah, it's made to
Yeah.
me, obviously, the most important relationship is that with my twin boys. And especially during this transition, it has had a really big impact. But I will tell you, Phil, I think it's important also because many of us come to coaching in midlife, carrying with us a very long string of life experiences and understanding to some extent the messiness of life in different degrees, obviously. And I thought that would make me a complete natural at coaching. But I think it's important to understand that adult learning, especially midlife adult learning, can be very challenging. And to go into this coaching training with a beginner's mind is really important because,
Mm,
in my experience, my brain didn't catch on as fast. I felt that I didn't have the digital fluency. And oftentimes I would wrestle with whether it's worth it or not because it was a much bigger challenge. I went into this program with this cavalier attitude. I've had this huge career and oh my god, coaching is going to be a walk in the park for me. And the exact opposite happened. I actually went into the cycle of self-doubt because I hadn't been back to school in some 30 years and I realized I had to catch myself in this cycle of self doubt. And the way that I did it is to just adopt this beginner's mindset and say, everything that I've done prior to enrolling in this ACT coaching program is insignificant. I just have to start from scratch. And that's when my learning really took off. So I think
Yeah.
that's very relevant to this conversation.
I think that's an incredibly brave thing that you did. And I think it's essential as well. And if we are high up in our career, or if we have many years under our belt in a certain sort of direction, then I think we are positioned as an expert in some degree. We've got professionalism and expertise under our belt. And so to come into the class and to dare to not know, to dare to leave all of your stuff at the door just so that you can fully immerse yourself in learning something maybe edgy and different is so
Mhm.
brave. Yeah. So well done. You stuck it out.
Did. I really
That's
I remember saying to my best friend after the first 3-day cohort, I'm like, "I am so going to fail. This
right.
is not up my alley at all." And then somehow a third way through the course, it clicked, and it was all because of this accountability of practice coaching. There was
Yeah.
no way for us to run from it because it's so integrated into the curriculum and the breakout rooms and having these triads where you're coaching and then there's the coachee and the observer and then that switches all the time and that is so rigorous within the ACT program that it really gives you no choice but to
Did you do
start.
your
Embrace it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's no escape.
There's no escape from
I
it.
was going to ask actually, did you do your course face to face or did you do it virtually or hybrid?
Virtually, I did it hybrid, yes.
Virtually, yeah. Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? The intimacy you can feel over Zoom. It's wow, this is incredible. Like the first hour or so, you're a bit like, okay. But then you start to go, oh, there's John and he's done all this work. And I'm going into a breakout room with Sarah and now I feel really connected.
What's so beautiful is that I remember the first breakout room, everybody was really a little bit shy to share any
Yeah.
personal stories because we didn't know where this course was going. So
Hmm.
when you're asked for a topic, the topics were very plain and superficial. I had a bad day at work yesterday and my boss said XYZ. And then towards the end of the program, everybody was like oversharing. You basically knew the
Yeah.
intimate lives of
Yeah.
everyone in that 25-person cohort. And
Yeah.
I felt that really is a testimony to the virtual experience that actually you
Mm.
can get that outcome without being face to face.
Yeah, completely. And also, I think a testament for the fact that the amount of safety and the degree of safety that's created in that container and the
Mhm.
confidentiality, which is essential in order to do some really brilliant coaching, I think is so solid in the ACT program. Yeah. This has been an amazing conversation, and we've come to our 30 minutes. And so I would love to just ask you to share how can people find you if people want to reach out to you, which I'm sure they will.
As someone who really had a hard time with social media in terms of promoting my professional life because finance is a very secretive industry. It took me a while to build that digital infrastructure and I picked LinkedIn and I'm
Hmm.
thrilled I did because it's a wonderful platform. So you can find me at Kat Sosnick, simply my name, on LinkedIn. And
Could you
uh,
maybe spell that
yeah,
just to make sure that we get the right one?
it's KAT and then SOSNICK. And I've actually adopted becoming a Gen Z LinkedIn creator as one of my other goals in life now because I'm just having such a wonderful time sharing content over there. And I post on Tuesdays and Thursdays and on Saturdays. And I would love to have anyone hop over and engage or DM me. And you can also find the link to my website on my LinkedIn.
Amazing. Fabulous. What a great conversation. It's been a real
Thank
pleasure
you,
having you on the
Phil.
show.
It's
Thank you for
always
being
great
here.
to hang out with you.
You too. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Act of Coaching. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please share it with a friend or colleague who you feel might find it valuable. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, because your 5-star review helps us reach more people who are curious about the power of coaching. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a future episode. Thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time.